Greetings, this is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central on a new day, doing it the same old way. That's what we got to do. We're just staying steady in the course, We're at 200 plus videos now, 200 plus live streams. Yes, that's right. We are living the live stream dream right here in Kent, Ohio. That's right, doing it all night, doing it all day in a very good way. So here we come at you straight ahead with a proverb today from Ethiopia, from the nation of Ethiopia. One who recovers from sickness forgets about God. One who recovers from sickness forgets about God. Now, that's an Ethiopian proverb for you. And the poem for today is I Vision God by Zora Neale Hurston. So who's that? Zora Neale Hurston. All right. One of our great writers and cultural proponents, Ms. Zora Neale Hurston, coming out of the Harlem Renaissance with Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen and all those type of folks. Let's see what Zora Neale had to say. This is out of a section of this book, 3,000 Years of Black Poetry, called Oral Traditionals. I vision God. I vision God standing on the heights of heaven, throwing the devil like a burning torch over the gulf, into the valleys of hell. His eye, the lightnings flash. His voice, the thunders roll. With one hand, he snatched the sun from its socket, and the other, he clapped across the moon. I vision God ringing a storm from the heavens, rocking the world like an earthquake, blazing the sea with a trail of fire. His eye, the lightnings flash. His voice, the thunders roll. With one hand, he snatched the sun from its socket, and the other, he clapped across the moon. I vision God standing on a mountain of burnished gold, blowing his breath of silver clouds over the world. His eye, the lightnings flash. His voice, the thunders roll. With one hand, he snatched the sun from its socket, and the other, he clapped across the moon. Now, that's from Jonas Gordvine. If you haven't read that, check it out. Zora Neale Hurston. Oh, excuse me. Okay. One sneeze for today. Hopefully, it's one out of none. I don't hope to be sneezing all day today. So let's hope I don't do that anymore. All right. Meanwhile, I think that camera's gone out on me. But I got two more left. And we're going to keep right on rolling today. So we left off yesterday. Now, we left off yesterday. I believe we left off right here. So I pointed out to Michael that if he chose to unschool himself with the goals of both having a fantastic time and preparing himself for adult work, chances are he would never have to walk into the depressing situation he predicted. Later, I thought back to the conversation, and I wish that I had also been able to say simply, well, Michael, Black people homeschool too. But at the time, I didn't know whether that was even true. Now I know it's true, and that many Black people homeschool to save themselves from a system which limits and destroys them, to reclaim their own lives, families, and culture, to create for themselves something very different from conventional schooling. I also know that the numbers of these people increase every year, and especially when I remember my first year of teaching. I hope the numbers will continue to increase by hundreds and thousands. I remember the horrifying smell of human energy and talent rotting in all schools, any schools, but especially in the mostly Black, badly funded schools where I substitute taught in Oakland, California. I remember a Friday when the school secretary told me to plan on coming back Monday because the chemistry teacher liked to take Fridays and Mondays off. I remember walking past vice principal's offices that were bulging with young men who had been kicked out of class. I remember the soft, eager eyes of preschoolers and the hard, cynical eyes of high school seniors. I remember the principal who introduced me as a long-term sub for a choir teacher, telling the class it didn't matter what they thought of my teaching. The state had given me a certificate, though in English, not in music, and that's all they needed to know. Back then, I didn't know enough to announce to my students that there was an altogether different and completely legal option, homeschooling. Let alone that people in their own communities were busy inventing and adapting this option to fit their own needs. Ironically, though, it was the desperation of that year in Oakland that first got me to thinking about what it would take to start a very tiny, very inexpensive private school. I wanted to keep teaching kids without squashing them, the way regular schools seemed inevitably to do. That thinking led me from one publication to the next until I had a copy of John Holt's Instead of Education. With that book, I discovered the realm of unschooling, and my life changed. My mind opened to new possibilities and a deeper understanding of my own childhood and adolescence. For the first time, I understood that learning and being taught are not the same thing. Although I did teach a couple more years in a private college prep middle school, I eventually quit in favor of the work I do now, spreading the word that kids can learn better and grow into brighter, more competent, livelier human beings outside of school. While I worked on this book, people have often asked me why Black people homeschool. Having only communicated with about 20 families in the process of editing this book, I'm hardly the expert. What I do know is that homeschoolers in general are an extremely diverse bunch. People in general homeschool so that children can learn more naturally and develop their unique talents. They homeschool to lessen the possibility of children being shot with a gun at school. They homeschool to maintain close family relationships. They homeschool to avoid the brutal school socialization process, which often turns thoughtful, unique children into rude conformists. They homeschool to honor their children's individual learning styles, which are not always compatible with sitting in a desk and shutting up. They homeschool to provide more challenging and thorough academic educations. They homeschool because they are tired of the racist, sexist propaganda that masquerades as truth in history textbooks. They homeschool to break down artificial barriers between life and learning. They homeschool for other reasons too, concerning health, religion, geography, and self-esteem. As the writers in this book show, African Americans homeschool for all these reasons and then some. Some homeschool because they see their racial integration in the schools has not always worked for their benefit. Did you hear me? Some homeschool because they see that racial integration in the schools has not always worked for their benefit. Among other things, they feel that it has disrupted community life and thrust children into hate-filled classrooms where few people encourage or hope for their success. Oh, it's just one challenge after another here. Let me see here. Let me plug that in. Some homeschool because they see that schools perpetuate institutionalized racism. Some homeschool because they are tired of curriculums emphasizing Europe and excluding Africa. Some homeschool because their children are overwhelmingly treated as problems in school and quickly labeled attention deficit disordered or learning ODD, OCD, ADD, ADHD. Some homeschool because Black children drop out of school at much higher rates than white children. Some homeschool because they want to continue the civil rights struggle for equal educational rights, and they feel that they can best do so by reclaiming their right to help their own children develop fully, rather than by working to get them equal access to conventional schooling. People also asked me if I noted differences in Black and white homeschooling styles. Again, all I can say with authority is that diversity reigns, no matter what color you're talking about. Some homeschoolers use expensive prepackaged curriculums, though many families who gradually relax into a more natural method using fewer textbooks and more real books, exploring outdoors and in their communities, as well as completing academic work at home. Some families de-emphasize books and emphasize learning through interesting volunteer positions and internships. Some very successfully allow their children to simply follow their greatest interests until they are experts in beekeeping or library science or computer programming or newsletter publishing. Some enroll in community classes and attend lectures. Some travel. Each family figures out through trial and error. What works best for them. Several African American homeschoolers have told me that Black people are much more likely than whites to emphasize academics and maintain a structured curriculum. And their observations were indeed borne out by my contact with some of the essayists and potential essayists for this book. It seems that this state of affairs reflects, at least in part, the same concern Michael expressed to me when I spoke in his high school. If more Black homeschoolers than white follow a structured curriculum, it's not necessarily because they value conformity or because they don't trust their children to acquire the skills they need to become happy, well-educated adults. Rather, for obvious reasons, they don't trust society to recognize their child's intelligence without benefit of at least a list of textbooks completed or classes taken through an academic summer program. I have to admit that from my position, I can't help but hope that this somewhat school-like approach to education is a temporary trend among Black homeschoolers, where a strong emphasis on conventional academics is based on fear. I hope that this fear will give way to the joyous confidence that many white unschoolers enjoy. Largely, but not completely, what this boils down to is that I fervently hope society will get a lot saner and make it easier for Black homeschoolers to feel that it's safe for them to give their children more freedom. That's what we all say we want, right? More freedom. In my travels, correspondence, and reading, I've noticed again and again that the brightest and most competent homeschool children are the ones who have been given the most freedom and support to pursue their own interests seriously. They may not be the most well-rounded in the conventional sense. They may not have absorbed equal parts of European and American literature, Eurocentrically written history, essay writing, textbook mathematics, basic competency in a foreign language, a smattering of artistic or musical knowledge, biology, chemistry, and physics, but they do usually have a broad, relaxed, overall understanding of the world. Graduate students often suffer from over-specialized academia. I've rarely seen that quality in an unschooler. Furthermore, these children often attain a serious level of expertise in the one or two areas they love best, going far beyond school's mediocre version of X. So it is my hope that all homeschoolers will increasingly choose to take full advantage of their potential for freedom. And that's why she called this book Freedom Challenge. She wasn't talking about freedom necessarily in terms of slavery or not being enslaved, etc. She was talking about freeing the mind. Freeing the mind. Can we allow our children's minds to be free? Can we allow that to happen in our? Can we even do that in our garden? Can we allow our garden to be free, or must our garden be structured and situated in a way that's rigid and formalized and tested and certified, etc.? Is that how we do? Is that how we grow our garden? That's not how I'm growing my garden. I grow my garden quite differently, because in the end, the things I can grow best in my yard are what grow best here, not what grows best over there necessarily. It's what can grow best here. That's how I do my garden. So the question now for you is, how you going to grow your garden? And when I say your garden, I'm not talking about plants. I'm talking about your children. That's the real question. So we're going to continue on with this. We got one more session with the introduction of this book. We're only going to read this book for a couple more days. So we're going to read the entire introduction, and then we'll do a few more snippets out of the book, and maybe just do like a general overview of the book probably on Friday. And today is already Wednesday, so we got 2 more days to go working on this book, because all I'm trying to do is give you an overview of the book and point out to you some of the highlights of the book and the reason behind the book, so that if you get this book or you have the book, by the way, you can find it in pretty much every library in the country, you'll have an idea of what you're going to find inside the book, okay, before you get the book. So meanwhile, we're moving on. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9. I'm signing off because I've run out of my time a little bit ago. And don't forget, we'll be back here tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, USA. Look for us later on today. We'll be here. Have no fear. We're spreading some more cheer through the year. Peace out.